Hey guys, oh boy, Uncle Valk here. I'm not kind of surprised by this. Intern-kun really done goofed this time. And it seems like her patch notes were leaked 24 hours early. So, wasn't planning on doing this today, was planning on doing this tomorrow, but I guess now I'll break down what I think and give my takes on each buff and unit, as well as the new units at the end. So just give them an overall score and just see where I think they'll fall in the meta. Oh boy, so this time we got Little Queen Charlotte, Spirit Eye Celine, Jacko, Summer Break Charlotte, Sharun, Arunka, Assassin Cartuja, and the three artifacts we'll be seeing buffed are Wings of Light and Shadow, Sword of Winter Shadow, and Iron Fan. Okay, let's not waste any time, let's jump right into it. Little Queen Charlotte. I don't actually think her buff matters. So what they did is they just buffed the damage against dark elemental units, right? So think picking LQC versus a Ravi, Hand Guy, and the likes. In real game scenarios, most of the time you'll be going into these units with attack buff, and most of the times you'll kill them. Or you're playing versus Hand Guy, and he's going to S2 you, you eat the attack down, and then you miss kill. So this buff in theory doesn't really change her matchups, in my opinion. It's never going to let her be so strong she can now kill a dark unit with no attack up and with attack down. So I don't really think it addresses the biggest issues she'll have in this meta. Honestly, I think this is like a 2 out of 10 buff. If you're LQC, you don't have the best gear, right? Your LQC gets gear gapped, you miss a kill on an A Ravi, maybe you miss a kill on a Hand Guy once in a while, you're not prepared for the opponent A Ravi to be on Proof of Valor, you miss kill, this one's for you. But for most people, I don't think this matters. Change number 2, Spirit Eye Celine. This is what we call a usability buff. This is what she needs to be a usable unit. So instead of 35% chance to proc up to 70, doubled when she has her unique buff, it's now 50 to 100. So no more of that 70% proc rate BS. The healing is increased too. I'm guessing they want her to be a more fast disruptive DPS than just she's Enoken, and move off of that lifesteal set. So she could potentially run other sets like speed, just to disrupt people with immortality buffs or even injury. Give her a 5 out of 10 on this buff because I think they wouldn't give her that much healing for free. If they do, and it completely takes over the value of a lifesteal set, I would say she'd be ranked a lot higher. So overall, I would say very middling, right? She's still going to be weak to debuffs. She's still going to be weak to extra damage from the likes of Karina Senya, which are still popular in the meta, especially at the end of the season, where she comes out right now. Number 3 on the list is really interesting to me. This is where the meat of this patch is. Jacko buffs are actually quite significant. So for the longest time, her role in this game, I would say, is that of like a green Sid, right? She's a single target nuker for that single target cleave playstyle. And there are a lot of units in that role, and each one of them would have some type of strength, whereas Jacko is she's slightly worse green Sid. And now this buff kind of puts her right up there with these guys, but maybe seeing how she works will give her more of an identity. So number one thing that they did for her is Chains of Chiron now still has a 25% chance to stun, but the rest of the 75% chance now, instead of doing absolutely nothing, they filled it with other buffs. Stun cannot be buffed, so unbuffable, decrease hit chance, and restrict for 1 turn. Well, it's not the longest. I liken these buffs to, for example, like stuff you would see on Payra and Politis, and those are definitely considerable debuff units. And the number one thing I think she offers now is a 50% CR push on the first rotation, 30% for herself, and all allies by 20% when she kills something, which, provided you build her with enough damage, she will kill, right? Units should be able to do the job they're built for. That is about 110% total CR, just purely from passives. Like, you don't have to use any extra skills, right? Just, it's now added on. Very nice. And I think this gives her one really, really big edge versus her biggest competition, which is Green Sid. Whereas before, she just worse Green Sid. Now she has one thing he doesn't. The ability to auto-push herself above an opponent's Sage Ball, who usually only pushes by 20% combat readiness. Now she pushes by 30% off of her first turn, which I think is really, really damn good. Because Sage Ball, whose existence is to steal turn 2 play, or to steal the turn from cleavers and combo players and shut down these combos, I think now Jacko definitely has a job, right? There's a role for her to be fulfilled. She has a use. I think buff overall is 6 out of 10. She's usable, but the long-term viability still depends on how the meta goes and whether or not she'll play in that competitive slot of single target nukers, right? Every other unit kind of has a niche. Melissa can strip buffs before she goes. Green Sid is a speed imprint. Commander Pavel has a passive that flushes everything out, and his S3 like can't even miss kills, right? Every unit has something to offer here, and debuffs right now just aren't very strong because of guys like Ed, Hand Guy, Dilibet. So we'll see where she lands. Summer Break Charlotte. Prior to this, she was already one of the nuttiest PvP units in the entire game. I think the buff takes her over the edge in challenging PvE content, especially in that episode 4 Zeo fight. I know a lot of people in my Aiden short were basically saying, you know, they didn't have a way to beat the boss of episode 4. Yeah, I just abused Summer Break Charlotte. She's crazy there. I think her biggest issues overall is that her archetype, right, is too gear intensive. So for reference, in Apocalypse, Ravi gets 30 crit for free and scales off HP, so she doesn't have to build attack. With some of the craziest utility in the game, like Revive plus 100 CR and all that stuff. So Ravi is a staple that has never gone away. Summer Break Charlotte gets 20%, needs to both build HP and attack because she doesn't want to die and she doesn't scale off of HP. And she has one of the worst base stat spreads in the game. How do you win that? Well, okay. Free crit just got bumped up to 30%, so that's a good starting point. We start with guaranteed dual attack buff now and 60 fighting spirit, meaning after you activate that dual attack buff, we're at 80, which means now we actually just get to S3 from the first turn. Cool. So this sets us up for a turn 1 defense break combo into her CR push off of S1, now 25%, into a big S3 nuke. And I actually think that's pretty solid. Epic 7 is all, especially in PvP, right, is a game that's all about taking tempo, getting a lot out of one turn, out of one rotation. That's why units like Spectre Tenebri and Politis, with their ability to soul burn into extra turns, is so useful. Yeah, so I think they gave her a lot of stuff, right? They gave her even a complete self-cleanse. On top of that, we removed the execution damage, but instead, now we penetrate defense by 50%, which I think is really damn good, because even if you don't miss a defense break, this is going to be a sizable chunk of damage, and if you do land that defense break, you're basically dealing true damage to somebody. Very, very impressive. I think the problem here is still, it's very hard to say how good she will be. While I do think she got a lot of buffs for free, which stat-hungry bruisers do need in this meta.
Hi,
but
honey.
the problem... Somebody just followed me, and I'm recording. That's odd. Okay, don't worry about it. Maybe she'll see a little bit more play with the advent of units like Abigail, who we'll talk about later, as well as units like Blue Tywin, who they're here to be a hyper carry, but just need a little bit more enabling. I'm actually fairly impressed by the buffs, but I still have my reservations about the unit, so 8 out of 10. Sharun. She now gives better buffs, right? So instead of giving these, it's attack, crit damage, speed, and immunity. Really, really good suite of buffs. But because they'll be given out randomly, I don't think it's too reliable. And also, they'll be given out for 2 turns. So what that tells me is, in the beginning of the game, she will be giving some very high value buffs for your strong units, but you're never really looking at her to be your best support option in a longer drawn out match. And I don't think she needs to be. because now they gave her the utility. Instead of decreasing buff durations by 1 turn, she now decreases them by 2 turns. That is incredibly powerful right now. Literally every support in the game gives 2-turn buffs, besides somebody like DN, right? So it looks like they changed her job. Instead of to go first and, you know, reduce turn 1 immunity, you can comfortably play her in a turn 2 spot where she can cut after the opponent has put up their buffs, and then now you can just like poof, snap everything away, and you just take all of that tempo away from your opponent. I think her S1 is still very deadly, probably one of the best S1s in the game, and they gave her enough utility to fight through immunity providers such as Hand Guy, Last Rite of Crow, and DJB. So I definitely watch out for her to be the next Shuna type unit, right? A control unit with a little bit of support capabilities, very disruptive to an RTA meta, especially if you don't like playing control or playing against control. Like, that's a unit to watch out for. Because even if you have Hand Guy first, you're no longer safe. Ooh, Arunka buffs. Okay, we asked for this. Now, no longer self-attack buffs, so we lost that 2-turn self-attack buff. What she did before was give herself her S3 nuke, right? A really high floor, so she's never doing like no damage, right? It's always going to be a bit of damage, but it's a low ceiling because you can only set it up to do so much damage. It's really easy to do a lot of damage, but you know, you'll cap out easily. Now this requires more skill from a player's perspective to set her up properly for, yup, you see it right here, increased damage, but only to barrier targets since we don't want a repeat of that Huayang meta. The cool part is when you get a kill, it's also going to reset S3 cooldown. So that's kind of spooky for all of these barrier tanks and supports in the game right now. So not only is DJ Beast a threat, if this damage increase is sufficient, Arunka will actually be a threat. Very cool buff. Overall though, I think question mark out of 10. You really can't say how good a DPS unit's buffs are going to be until you see the damage. And SG doesn't like to give us the details, so yeah, you guys get this one from me. Okie dokie, Assassin Cartuja. Ooh, okay. This is the for fun unit of the patch. They reworked him to be an evasion enabler, so that's cool. The extra 5% evasion for his team evasion EE is now baked into his passive normally, so just plus 20%. And the EE itself is reworked so that it increases his own evasion by an additional 20%. So it gives him something like 40% evasion for himself out the gate, and it increases his evasion by 50%, so it's like 90% evasion. Oh, that's wild. Also changed his S1 to provoke from bleed. Before, you kind of like, if you wanted to take advantage of it, you needed to stack a little bit of attack. Now we're no longer doing that. We're going with a utility on the provoke. So what that does is you're going to provoke something, it's going to hit him, 90% chance it's going to miss, and then it will CR push his team. So that's pretty interesting. He's going to be really annoying. Overall rating though, I think he's 4 fun out of 10. Fun hero, but with more of these like hit rate units being added into the game, I don't think he's going to be very competitive, but depending on the draft, you could definitely slam him out on last pick to just cheese people. So kind of excited to see what people are going to do with them. Oh man, I'm just gonna take this space to rant. I love when patch notes don't have 3-star units. They usually add a lot of bloat, and you have to read it for literally 0 payoff because it rarely changes how the game is. No need to talk about Carrot or Arrowell here. More talking about, like, you know, these other chumps, but don't worry about it. Okay, artifacts. They usually rework a lot of older, underused artifacts, so here's to hoping these are okay. And we got Ilanov, Rands, and Bologna's artifact. Probably 3 of the bottom of the barrel artifacts. Let's see what they're doing for it. All right, Ilanov artifact. The 15 free crit stays. Yay. And it now boosts all damage for knights that relies on crit. So not only single target attacks, now it boosts AoE attacks as well. So it should work on stuff like Fire Charlotte, Bellion, even Summer Charlotte, right? This in theory means your damage is like permanently boosted besides your first attack. I'm still not hot on this artifact since Bruiser Knights already have a lot of competition in the artifact slot. Some of them boost their usability. They're unusable without their artifact, while others also boost survivability on top of boosting damage by a similar margin. So I would assume those are much more competitive. So the only advantage you get here is the 15 free crit, which makes your unit a lot easier to build. So maybe a future unit could come along and change my mind, but for now, 2 out of 10 for me. Ran artifact now has the same margins of soul exchange as book, right? Plus 10 for self, minus 10 for enemy. That's 20 total advantage for your side, with a little bit of bonus attack attached to it. It's cool. I'm not huge on it. You could cleave with it as a pseudo book on Ran, but in most cases, RNL is usually a win game by itself at a 36% proc rate, because it's 20% on 2 turns, right? 36% chance. And I would say the only advantage here you're getting is the 10 souls you'll be getting anyway. Removing 10 souls from enemy is cool, but if you use it on something like Ran, Peyra, turn 1, it's not going to be that much value. Later turns, there's probably better artifacts, right? It's still very niche, so I'm not a huge fan. I think the fact that it gives you 10 souls now by itself is like kind of a 5 out of 10 if you play specifically a playstyle where you play Ran in a very aggressive way and you would appreciate any additional incoming souls. Iron Fan. This one has me stuck a little bit. On one hand, I like it. 30 CR is a lot. 30 CR is a lot for a unit every time they AoE, even if on a 1-turn cooldown, right? This means every time like an SSB counters, right? Boom, 30% up. Every time a Landy S3s, right? She already gives herself 15% CR. With this, it's 45% CR. With an Omid, it's 95% CR off of a Landy S3. That's kind of wild. Or even like a Commander Pavel S2, right? That's 80% CR push. But here's the problem. Every single one of those units I just named have a way more priority artifact that is core to their identity, especially in RTA. SSB needs Rengar Specialty Drink. Landy needs Guiding Light. And even a tanky Landy isn't going to fly without Bloodstone. So I think this is an artifact that's cool for the buffs, but you just put in your pantry for the chefs. Think this is a 9 out of 10 cooking material, 3 out of 10 eaten raw. So yeah, a lot of reworks here, so they got a recall schedule too. You'll be able to recall anything that got a rework between the days of June 8th to June 22nd. Especially Iron Fan, like that's just too big of a rework, right? Eligible for the recall. So that's all the buffs, and I guess that's a hold on, ding 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 ding, bonus round. Yeah, you guys thought I was done, didn't you? All right, well, you know, we just got info on Abigail as well as last Piece Karin. Might as well give you guys my thoughts on those as well. Oh boy, okay, so Abigail brings a lot of unique things with her kid. She has a passive application of Curse, applying immortalities to allies, as well as giving sustain to allies via the vampirism buff. I think the biggest thing she can do is completely strip a unit into a single target nuke plus damage with injury, which is cool. Lots of bruiser right now, but the biggest part is she can also transfer this damage through her curse. So you can enable a lot of interesting combos as long as there's no immunities on the opponent's side. Off the top of my head, she can, there's a lot of cool things you can do with her. You can give healings to non-lifesteal set bruisers. She can curse an Aiden and then strip the invincibility, nuke a person to potentially even set up an Aiden kill without even touching her. She can let you run a YOLO nuker like ML Laika and completely ignore an A Ravi, since now with that immortality buff from her passive, A Ravi can't revenge kill / revive her dead ally. So she's a very, very interesting unit with a lot of new unique aspects being brought to the game. I'm pretty excited. But ultimately, I do think the real prize here is her artifact. This thing goes so hard. It just enables so many units, especially if you're on a newer account, you're trying to play Bruisers, but you're lacking Sigurd Scythe, you're lacking maybe Snow Crystal for Shu, right? Because this thing can go on Shu Alencia. Your A Ravi might as well run it. ML Bologna looks great on it. Ed probably wants it over Sigurd Scythe anyway, especially for those injury ones that like to solo a long match. Hell, even non-lifesteal set Lionheart Sturmia is probably more competitive now, thanks to this artifact. This thing goes really hard, for real. Overall, I think Abigail, 6 out of 10 unit. I think she takes a little bit more cooking to use. Her passive is really interesting, but outside of that, she feels like a solid, but overall not crazy unit. But I do think this artifact is nuts though. 9 out of 10. Okay, and this is for real now the last unit of this patch that we'll be getting. Really, really cool unit. I like her aesthetic. But you know, for a lot of words, I'm gonna just be really honest, guys. A lot of people are losing their mind over this, right? Over this unit. Oh, she looks so crazy. Oh, she does so much damage. Guys. This unit's just an A Sid with a Kisei S3. That's it. And you know what? She even plays the same way as a high damage Assassin Sid with Wind Rider. The only thing this changes is it gives her 50% hit chance for Aiden. I'm not missing anything, right, guys? Like, they added a lot of words, but it's just more words that mean do more damage, right? And we don't know how much damage she does. I mean, for balancing sake, I'm expecting her damage to not be that far from a damage Acid. She buffs herself and has a cool animation and you know, place into it and everything, right? But in practice, this is just a Wind Rider Acid. A lot of people already play that at high rank, so people are like, oh no, but my this unit's gonna die. Like, yeah, if you're afraid of your C Lilius or your Ahmed dying at high ranks, right? People already play a Wind Rider high damage Acid, so I think it really comes down to how good her Phantom Sword and Neo Phantom Sword's damage is, right? The Phantom Sword is just kind of there, so you ignore damage sharing effects, which is powerful, but usually that comes at a cost. It means they have lower natural damage, right? And the other thing is, once you get your kill with Phantom Sword, it turns into Neo Phantom Sword, and then it dispels after she attacks again. So it's cool. I like her, but let's not get too hasty, guys. Unless her damage is really out of the charts, in which case, yeah, we would be power creeping an Acid, right? But until we see those numbers, I'm just gonna treat this as the same thing as a Wind Rider Acid, like strong unit, right? There's definitely a lot of usage you can use this unit for, but I wouldn't really be losing my mind over it. I would say overall 9 out of 10 design, 6 out of 10 gameplay creativity. Like, again, we already have fast single target nukers in the game. Not like something we've never seen before, right? But I'll admit they did package it real well. And once again, we're not gonna know how strong these units are until we have like got the units in our hands and tested them, because you know, Smilegate doesn't like to give us detailed numbers, so it is what it is. All right, but for now, that's I believe that is literally all the new units and buffs we'll be getting with this patch. I'm personally pretty excited. Oh man, this is gonna be a lot going out of this season, because after this is generally the biggest off season of the year, right? When RTA season ends, you know, around that May-June break point. That's when, you know, what was it, last year we had that E7WC qualifier mode, right? That's when that starts up. So maybe we'll see that start up and see if anything gets changed here. But for now, good luck on the end of the season, guys, especially if you're watching this video the day it comes out, or maybe even a day later. I hope you guys made your goals. This season's been a lot of fun with big meta shifts, and I think it's one of our most diverse season yet. If you really enjoyed this season, oh yeah, don't forget, you can catch me June 3rd, 2023. If you're watching this video a lot later, first of all, what are you doing? Second of all, hi. Third of all, if you go back to the official Epic 7 channel on June 3rd, you'll be able to see me in person alongside my casting partner Divine. We will be casting the Amazon Conqueror's Cup. It's also going to come with an exclusive emo for in-game, so make sure you don't miss that one. But for now, that's it from me. If you have any questions, be sure to leave it down in the comments or get in the Discord where I hang out literally every day, and we can have a discussion on anything you might have a question on. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Helps me out a lot. I'd really appreciate it. But yeah, that's it from me for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there, and see ya.